Hey folks, Pix here, and it's been about a year since my last top 10 video. Man, I really should do more than one a year. I suck. Anyway, you came here to see my top 10 favorite Friday the 13th movies, or you have about 10 minutes to burn. Either way, thanks for watching. And here we go. I know what you're thinking. Pix? What the hell? There are only 10 Friday the 13th movies, one spin off, and your number 10 is the remake from 2009? Okay, now hear me out. The remake is actually really good. It condensed the essence of the first Friday the 13th films. It had a great cast. I mean, come on. Jared Padalecki from Supernatural, Danielle Panabaker from Flash, Travis Van Winkle from The Last Ship, Ben Feldman from Superstore, Ryan Hansen from Veronica Mars. Jeez. Maybe that's why I like this movie so much. Because most of the cast are from TV shows I love. Huh. Anyway, it's still a well-made movie, especially for a Friday the 13th film. It's a shame that the reboot/remake died so quickly, because it didn't bomb at the box office. In fact, did extremely well. But here we are, 8 years later, no sequel, and the studio that owns the rights are still trying to get another reboot/remake made. Which kind of makes sense. I mean, ever since the release of the Friday the 13th video game earlier this year, there will probably never be a better time to get another movie in the theater than right now. Oh well. As long as they don't try and Rob Zombie this thing, like the Halloween remake, and keep the simple formula that makes the Friday the 13th series great, I'll always look forward to seeing an unstoppable hockey mask wearing juggernaut that is Jason Voorhees on screen again. Hopefully sooner rather than later. For those fans of this series outside of Jason Goes to Hell, this is the one I hear the most crap about. Why? Well, spoilers, Jason just isn't in it at all. Not even a little bit. This is the Halloween 3 of the series, which is truly an underrated movie, by the way. And no, there will not be a top 10 Halloween list, because I would have to include the Rob Zombie films in there, and I really don't like them. And I'm sorry to any fans of these two movies that Rob Zombie did. While I found parts of Halloween okay, the sequel just sucks. And my ire for Halloween extends into the complete demystifying audience hand-holding explanation of why Michael Myers is the way he is, which ruins the character. The best characters for horror films are left vague and undefined, given just enough knowledge to make it feel real, but not too much, or the unstoppable killing machine that is The Shape is turned into a whiny child that comes from a broken home. That is totally unnecessary. I mean, in the original, it looks like he comes from a perfectly fine home, but no explanation is given other than he is just evil. Ugh. Sorry, didn't mean to derail this on a rant about Halloween. Back to part 5, though. Well, Jason is, again spoilers, killed in part 4, dead. Never to return. I mean, ever. Or at least that was the plan. But the series was so profitable that they had to do a sequel, right? So part 5 introduced the concept of continuing the legacy of Jason Voorhees without Jason Voorhees. Unlike what Halloween tried to do with 3, which was take the series into an anthology-like direction. 5 and Beyond was going to have a hockey mask killer continue killing kids at Camp Crystal Lake, but it was going to be a different killer. Starting with Tommy Jarvis, the kid from part 4 and the main character in part 5. Which it was hinted at the end of 4. It was completely set up and through part in 5 to the very end. But they got cold feet and brought Jason back in part 6. How? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Jason Takes Manhattan. At this point in the series, it was running out of steam. I'll admit that. And while the title is completely misleading, this film is always a treat to watch for me, because it is Jason at his most Jasonist. Jasoniest? Jason-iest. Oh well. Although I don't think that this hulking behemoth would go unnoticed for as long as he does on a cruise ship, but we had to get him from the bottom of Crystal Lake to the Big Apple somehow. So, there you go. Oh, and one of my biggest complaints in this series is the spoilers ending where we see Jason's dumb face. Look at that. Just why? But then it gets even dumber because he drowns in toxic waste and turns back into a child. What? Ugh. Jason returns from part 6 to face off a girl that is telekinetic. Yep, that happened. And you thought going to Manhattan was dumb. Of course, they don't face off until after killing most of the cast off, of course. The movie would only be 10 minutes long if it did. Moving on. Okay, this is where I'm probably going to lose most of you, because I will agree the first film is a masterpiece, but I saw the films out of order, and part 1 was probably the 5th or 6th film in the series that I saw. And well, while I do love it, I do. I just prefer the campier movies with Jason in it instead of his mother. So take it for what it's worth, and definitely watch Friday the 13th. It's not only a classic, it is fantastic. Ha, that rhymed. Okay, so we're at the halfway point, and for me, my top 4 are a no-brainer for me. But here I go, including the spin-off film, Freddy vs. Jason. Now, I can hear the argument that this isn't a true Friday the 13th film, like Alien vs. Predator isn't a true Alien film. Well, I don't care. I love this movie. Much like I love peanut butter and chocolate, Freddy vs. Jason is always a treat to watch, because it melts 2 of my favorite horror franchises together. And God, I wish they had been able to make the sequel they had planned. It was going to be Freddy vs. Jason versus Ash. No, not that Ash. But the man, the myth, the legendary Chin himself, Ashley Williams, played by one of my favorite actors, Bruce Campbell. Yes, if you have a long enough running franchise, they will end up in space. Why? Leprechaun did it, so did Hellraiser, Critters. Well, technically that was a sci-fi horror movie to begin with, and the Critters were aliens. Anyway, so in between the train wreck that is Jason Goes to Hell and Jason vs. Freddy, you have Jason X, or Friday the 13th Part 10, or Jason in Space. And yes, this is high up on my list because it is just a fun ride beginning to end. It is probably one that I have seen the most. Why isn't it number 1? Well, there are 3 films in the franchise that have a special place in my heart, and they are the ones I saw the most as a kid. Right in that sweet spot when I fell in love with horror movies, which is probably why I love the campier and cheesier fare of the genre. But that's just me. Now, we get to the gimmick film, which is saying something considering my last pick. But there was a time in the 80s that 3D had a real resurgence. I mean, we had Jaws 3D, which is one of my favorite guilty pleasure films of all time, Amityville 3D, Metal Storm 3D, even Nightmare on Elm Street had a 3D sequence in Freddy's Dead, and of course, Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. This is the first film in the franchise that I got to see because for some reason this is the one that needed the minimum amount of editing to be able to be shown on primetime television, and for that reason, it's the one that I've probably seen the most. Now, I never got to see it in 3D up until a couple years ago when they re-released all the movies on DVD. They released the 3D version with 2 sets of glasses. It was so much better that way. It makes so much more sense watching this film as it was originally intended to be seen, which is the only way I can watch it now. After watching Part 3 on TV over and over again, I finally got my mom to let me rent Part 4 at my local mom and pop video rental store, which probably dates me, but I don't care, because the big get for me in this film was Corey Feldman, which I knew as Mouth from The Goonies, and that just blew my mind. And then I saw Crispin Glover, the dad from Back to the Future, and I lost it. This was my first experience of, oh yeah, that person was in that movie, which always takes it up a notch for me. You know when you watch Critters 4 and bam, there's Angela Bassett. I mean, Angela Bassett was in Critters 4. That's just mind-blowing to me. This one gets stuck right up there because of my childhood nostalgia and, of course, my love of cheesy 80s horror films. So finally we get to my number 1 favorite the Friday the 13th movie, and all that can do math knows which one it is. If you haven't seen this, then why not? This is the one that followed the attempted continuation of Jason no longer being the killer in Part 5, which resulted in a much poorer box office. So that prompted the studio in a panic to somehow bring Jason back from the dead, and boy, did they. With no greater explanation than resurrection via lightning strike, Jason gets zombified and becomes that superhuman strong, unstoppable behemoth that he is known for today. Now, I can't tell you why I love this film so much, but it's like wrapping myself in a blanket and sucking down some warm chicken noodle soup. It just puts a huge smile on my face and gives me all the nostalgic feels that make this my number one Friday the 13th film, period. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and check out my other videos. And don't forget to hit me up on Twitter. As always, thanks for watching. Pix signing out.